Hello, and welcome to the PDA Society's podcast. We're here to chat about all things PDA to help you understand what people with this profile of autism are experiencing and how you can help. We'll be sharing research, professional expertise, and the insights of people with lived experience to help you understand PDA and have more tools to make life easier. So, whether you're a PDA yourself, a family member, friend, or professional trying to make a difference, welcome from everybody at the PDA Society. We hope you'll find this useful.
Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm your host for this podcast. Today we're going to be delving into the topic of distress behaviours, which I'm sure is close to many of our hearts. Whether you're a PDA yourself, a parent or carer of a PDAer, I'm sure that you've experienced distress behaviours in some form. Before we begin, I'd just like to warn listeners that we will be discussing themes on the topic of distress behaviours, such as aggression or self-harm, which might be triggering for some. So just to say, do look after yourselves, and if you need to step away, then please do so. I'm delighted to be joined by our guest speaker for this week, Julia Daunt. I'll let Julia introduce herself. So welcome, Julia. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. As Rachel said, my name's Julia. I'm an adult PDAer. I've also got diagnoses of ADHD and something called psychotic episodes. And I'm here this week to talk to you about, as Rachel said, distress behaviours. Should be good.
That's great. Yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, let's dig into it then. So I guess to start, a useful starting point might be to explain what distress behaviours are, and how would you explain what these are, Julia?
Many and varied. But to sort of put it in a nutshell, it's when a PDAer, in this case, becomes so overwhelmed either by a demand or demands placed on them. It could be that a particular situation caused that. It could be a series of events or demands building up. And it could also be something sensory related that was the input for the distress behaviours. And distress behaviours can be internalized or externalized. Internalized could take on the form of almost becoming limp and crying, withdrawal, becoming mute for a time, that kind of thing, and even sort of self-injurious behaviours, so self-harm. And then your more externalized distress behaviours would be where I would fall under, where you've got maybe fight or flight behaviour. I'm both, depending on my mood, and maybe lots of shouting, swearing, crying, throwing things, hurting themselves, hurting others, that kind of thing. And it's a very bizarre thing to be in, because you feel it coming because you feel the anxiety, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. And once you're in it, you don't really have any idea what you're doing, what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's no control. And once you reach that tipping point, you just kind of have to go with it and just go through it. And then the recovery, I'm finding the older I get, the longer that's becoming.
Right.
I think it's the case for everything as you get older, isn't it?
That's very true.
But certainly as a child, I could have, a very spectacular, as they were called then, meltdown, where, I'd trash a room and then be outside playing football in 10 minutes time,
Yeah.
Whereas now as an adult, if I do have distress behaviour, say at 11 o'clock in the morning, that's the whole day for me then.
Right.
It's not, I don't recover as quickly. It's an interesting point, I think.
So from what you said then, Julia, it changes for you. It seemed to have changed from when you were a child to as an adult now. It's the format of the distress behaviour. It takes a bit longer for recovery.
It does, it does. So as a child, I could you know, have a period of distress behaviour and maybe trash an entire room. And then, 10 minutes later be outside playing football,
Yeah.
with no ill effects. Well, to me,
Mm.
obviously those around me, yes.
Yeah.
But certainly now as an adult, if say I had a distress behaviour at 11 a.m., then that's the whole day. Then emotionally, anyway, for me, is a write off. I can't
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't get it back. You know, and I think that's the case, isn't it, with everything as you get older?
It does seem to be, doesn't it? Yeah. Everything takes a
Yes.
bit longer to recover from, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you touched briefly then, I just want a little dig into it a little bit more. You touched briefly as you were talking earlier about the causes of distress behaviours. So it's not, is it often just one thing that might cause a distress behaviour for you to come on? Or is it that build up? Is it the sort of, the one thing after another, and then that distress behaviour appears?
More commonly now with me, the build up isn't so much now because I manage demands on me
Yeah.
so well that I don't usually get to that point of distress behaviour
Mhm.
now, because I've learned now that I can't do everything on one day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and obviously as an adult, I've got much more autonomy than you have as a child. So,
Mm.
those two factors mean that those type of distress behaviours are rarer with me now.
Yeah.
The ones that I do still have are usually caused by one event or situation. Um,
Okay.
and it can be anything. So I had two last week, very short ones. I have what I call them, because I still at home use the term meltdown. So I
Yeah.
had my mini meltdown, which usually they last about sort of 3 minutes and
Mhm.
are humorous to watch for those watching, because they're like, "You all right?" Um,
Okay. And
so
what
I had
format does that take then, Julia?
so that was triggered by I just got out the shower and I couldn't get my legs into my pajamas
Right. Okay. Yeah.
because my legs were still wet.
Yeah.
So that we all know how that goes.
Oh,
And
yes.
I was getting more and more cross over about a 30-second period. And then I
Mm.
just screamed, like
Yeah.
really loud, really screamed.
Yeah.
Lots of swearing, and I punched the bathroom cupboard.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I was all right then once I'd let that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the same day, I couldn't unlock the back door because the lock had expanded somehow with the heat. Um,
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
so one of my things that I can't bear is being trapped. And
Yes.
I know I've got a front door that works, but and windows that open. But in my
Mm.
head, I was trapped. So again, it was the same process of lots of screaming and shouting. And then I with the palm of my hand punched the plastic part of the door, thankfully.
Yeah.
And so I have those quite often,
Okay.
maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and they're usually triggered by something as mundane as that, or receiving an email that I find particularly triggering, or um, a letter from the council, an appointment I didn't want to have has come
Yeah.
through, um, a situation didn't go well, so maybe I was at the doctor's and it was delayed, that
Right.
type of stuff um, usually triggers them. Um, the more explosive ones, as I say, tend to be when I'm really overwhelmed by lots of things, um,
Mm.
and they don't happen as often
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So there's a positive in there.
There
Um,
is
and I
definitely.
do find the mini ones actually work very well at regulating, because obviously in that moment, I'm not just angry at having wet legs and pajamas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is coming out in that moment. So um, they can be really quite good at regulating anxiety in general. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in a
And
weird way.
Yes, I suppose it diffuses some of that anxiety. You're getting it out so that you're preventing that build up and that layering of other things coming on. So if
Yeah,
something else happens a little bit later, you've got a little bit more capacity to deal with it than if you
yeah,
hadn't had that release earlier on. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I do find if I'm out and about and I've got to hold in that situation, when I get home, I'm just a mess
yeah.
because I've not been able to do that behaviour in public. We're
Yeah,
not supposed to, are we? Obviously, the larger distress behaviours I can't hide. You know,
no, no,
if they're going to happen in public, they're going to happen in public. But the
yeah,
smaller ones are not really conscious because I don't know what I'm going to do when I do them. But I don't do any approaches to stop it. I just
yeah. Let it.
we're going to throw the remote control. That's fine. Just do it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's almost, it sounds like it's almost a bit of a process for you. You know it's
Yes.
coming. It's so you're going to let it happen at a
Yeah.
lower level to prevent that bigger one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I still remember the first time Paul saw one of those, and he almost sat there, almost like, all right.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, just let me have 2 or 3 minutes,
yeah,
and I'll be back again in a minute, you know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it is like I become a different person for that 2 or 3 minutes of just like,
yeah.
because I'm normally quite chilled.
Yes,
I do get wound up by things, but I always add humour.
yeah,
So, you know, if we get an unexpected bill, I'll make jokes about, you know, money doesn't grow on trees and you can't get blood from a stone and,
yeah.
you know, those type of things. And I make light of it. So
Mm,
I don't normally blow up like that. So
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
non PDA life,
yeah, yeah.
not that, you know,
And it sounds like that it's sort of thinking about what's causing those distress behaviors. It sounds like a lot of it is it's to do with that feeling of being trapped or being out of control.
yeah,
So like with the pajamas, you couldn't get them on. So there's something that you couldn't do. And then
yeah,
the physical couldn't open the door as a physical, actually, I feel
yeah,
trapped, and that panic kicks in.
yeah,
And I suppose both of those things are that feeling of being out of control, aren't they?
yeah. And I'm sort of taking it further, I suppose, because my polyvagal nerve, like most PDAs, is always ready to go. You know, it's always
Mm.
in that heightened um, state. It probably doesn't take much for that because feeling trapped is a basic human instinct. Is
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, you know, if you corner an animal,
yeah,
they can turn vicious and bite. You know,
yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly. Yeah,
so you know, you hear about animals, you know, like that are caught in a trap, and they play dead until you go to release them,
yeah,
and then they bite your fingers off, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
It's not it's a an inherent reaction. It's
It is, isn't it?
not.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. It's something that's all within us all, isn't it? We all have
Yes.
those feelings. I think
Yes.
maybe for PDA it's just that, as you say, it's triggered quicker, and
Yeah.
maybe by much, it's sort of by things that might not trigger somebody else, but it will be more
Yeah.
triggering for you. So therefore,
Yeah.
it's more heightened, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can laugh about those my mini distress behaviours. I can laugh about them because I mean it's ridiculous. You know, 42 years of age, getting that upset over pajamas and wet legs.
Yeah.
Um, Especially as there's such a simple resolution to that, which is dry your legs.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. But at the time, though, you
No, at the
can't work that
time.
out, though, can you?
No,
Yeah.
and at the time, because it's a demand to dry yourself, you see, so that's why I didn't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but the bigger ones, obviously, I don't usually find humour in them,
Mm.
unless there was a bystander who had a humorous reaction,
Right. Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
normally Paul will tell me about somebody's behaviour after, and I'll
Yeah.
find that quite funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But in the
but
moment, you
yeah,
can't
no,
you can't
no,
find the humor in the moment. No.
no,
No. No. That's fair enough. And we know for some people, their distress behaviors don't always come out in the same form. So,
no.
in one heightened state, they might self-harm, but in another heightened state, they might run. Do you know a reason why that can be? Why do people have different distress behaviors? And is there does it feel like there's an element of choice almost over what they do, or is it just that it just kicks in and whatever feels that that release will happen at that time, and that's the behavior that comes out?
I think it depends what the cause is. So if, for example, somebody was in my personal space and wouldn't leave it,
Yeah.
I haven't hit another human being for 30 years at least, probably. I think if I was in the right situation, so cornered, and literally had somebody not backing off, I probably would hit them.
Right. Yeah.
Because again, I'd feel trapped. And if you are causing my distress behaviour and you're not leaving my space, and you are literally, say, within a foot of my space, then, you know, I will lash out more than likely. So those type of things, yes. And certainly as a child, I was almost subconsciously, but black and white about distress behaviour. So if a teacher told me do X, Y, and Z, it would be the teacher that would get the behaviour.
Yeah.
And if it was a friend, it would be the friend. If it was my mum, it would be my mum. So it was very, you know, but it wasn't intentional. It was just, you triggered, you get it.
Yeah.
You know, on a subconscious level. Whereas now it's more, because obviously in the adult world you've got to pretend quite a lot, haven't you? That, oh yes, I like this GP, you're lovely.
Yeah.
And inside you're like, I really want to slap you, but I can't. So you go home and then you have a go at your husband, because
that's your safe space, isn't it?
That's how we have to do it, unfortunately. So, you know, there's not, and the behaviour that we experience is different as well. So, as I said, I've not hit another human for like 30 years, but I do throw things regularly.
Right.
I do a lot of shouting, screaming, and swearing, and not swearing that makes sense. It is literally just swear word after swear word. With no commas.
That release.
Just every swear word in a long stream. Some invented. There have been words invented. I never remember them, but I know that they're there because Paul's laughed.
Right. Yeah.
But I've made combinations of words, sometimes 2 or 3, make a new word, which is really write them down. But mostly, and there is some self-harm as well. I do that because I some people don't. Some people say that skin picking is not self-harm. I beg to differ and say yes, it is. So I do that quite regularly. And mostly now, if it's going to be a bigger distress behaviour, I will flee now. I'm not really a fighter anymore. I'm not really. I've given up throwing tables. So say I was in a medical appointment that was going horribly wrong. I'm more likely to say, "You're rubbish." Obviously not quite as polite as that. And tell them why I think they are. Then all this happens in the space of about 30 seconds. Then I will stand up and leave. After lots of swearing.
And it's to get out of, I suppose, of that situation that's causing you stress, isn't it?
Yes,
it's causing your anxiety to increase.
Because in my head, I'm like, if I stay, am I going to throw a table? So before I get to a real crisis point, for me, the tipping point between sort of, not that you can stop it, but the course it will take is when I flee. So if at that point somebody was to come and grab my arm, like you do at school, that would be the point that you'd probably get a slap. Whereas you might not have done had you have just let me go. So I you know, for me, not that there's any blame to sort of share out, but I sometimes think it's better to let them go. Because the behaviour of fleeing is for a reason. We're not doing it because you're boring or we've just had enough. It could be a safety thing. And for me it is, because I don't want to slap the doctor. I mean, you know, inwardly I do, but obviously I don't want to. So for me, if somebody was to grab my arm and say, "No, you've got to come back," I'd no.
You can't be, no, you can't.
and the same as Paul said that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think I would never hit him, but you never know. So for me at that point, that's then when I've lost control once
Yeah.
I've left. So then I will
Yeah.
cry. We get lots of crying.
Mm.
So yeah, crying. I suppose in a weird sort of way, I'm becoming more internalized once I actually reach that sort of no return point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I do the crying and the not talking, or not being able to talk, and sort of just laying there on the sofa, just
Yeah. And
yeah,
so it sounds like you have some of that shutdown as well then, that you
yes,
can't communicate with people and you're just within yourself almost.
yeah. And I never had that as a child. Never.
Mm.
I was, throw the table and then play football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
Oh, I suppose it's what is helping you get that anxiety down to a level that you can manage, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's that if it's running away and then crying, and by crying, I suppose you're getting that is releasing emotion, isn't it?
yeah,
I know it's physically releasing tears, but it's also that helps to release emotion
yeah,
and the anxiety. And then I suppose then you're that some of that self-reflect bit comes back in. That might be when you're just closing yourself off. You don't
yeah,
want to talk. You might not be able to talk because the brain bit's shutting down as well. But it's that
yeah,
not being able to communicate until your anxiety has dropped low enough. Yeah. So
yeah.
there's a huge
And
range then for you, isn't there?
and I'm also processing because I may have, well, I will have an element of embarrassment
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that appointment didn't go well. I behaved, as I see it, inappropriately. Um,
Mm.
I've, you know, there's that element of failure because I couldn't do it and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
didn't work. Then there's the dread of like, oh, I'm gonna have to do it again now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
And
and just exhaustion.
yes.
Because you can almost hear a commentary in your head when appointments are going like that, and you can almost hear like sort of word that again that way, and I'm going,
Right.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
almost see it sort of
Yes.
playing out, and you're like, here we go.
Yeah, I
Um,
suppose, and it's almost like you're not focusing on the actual content of what the meeting's about. You're too focused on how they're phrasing things and waiting for that tipping point to be reached, I suppose, aren't you?
yeah,
It's that
yeah,
it's a tricky one, isn't it? So then that sort of, I mean, we've touched on it there. That sort of brings up to, the next question really is about what before you hit that crisis point or those meltdown points, are there any like changes in your body that you can feel when does your stomach get tight? Do you feel yourself, your palms getting sweaty or something like that? The
yeah.
physiological changes, I suppose, is the question of when you can feel that anxiety is getting to the point where you could go into distress behaviours.
Sometimes it's quite hard because I think if we didn't have anxiety generally, then
Mm,
I think we'd be able to go up that point there. We'd be able to pinpoint it. But
yeah.
because we're already anxious
Mm,
and sometimes quite highly anxious without distress behaviour, we're just there
yeah.
going along. So sometimes distress behaviour will shock me. I'm like, whoa,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
that that came out
Where
of
did that
nowhere.
come from? Yeah.
Yeah, like, all right, um, and I
Mm.
will actually ask myself after, like, better now, you know.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
didn't see that one coming. Um, it just so sometimes it's if you take your eye off the ball of managing your own anxiety, you are left sometimes a bit surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but usually for me, I can feel my anxiety going up at varying speeds, so it will depend on the situation. So something like this, which I
Mm,
enjoy doing,
yeah.
my anxiety is going up, but slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you'd said to me at the start, well, this is going to be a 6-hour recording,
Mm,
I would
yeah.
have had to say to you, I need to do it in 2 parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I had done it for 6 hours, very likely my anxiety would be too high to finish. And we'd have
Yeah.
to stop because I couldn't cope with that level. So
Mm,
um
mm,
so So sometimes it can even be like a day out somewhere can end in distress behaviour because I've been happy too long.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the anxiety goes up gradually because I'm having a
Gradually.
lovely day, but it still ends up tipping at the other end.
Okay.
And similarly, it can be if it's a horrible appointment, you know, that anxiety will shoot up.
Right.
And then you can, you know, it's the physical bit you get is just, well, I feel more sick than I feel it ordinarily.
Okay.
And I get that where you just want to clench your fists and clench your teeth. So anger, I think would be the word. And a real sort of sense of dislike, maybe even hatred for the thing or the person, or the situation.
Yeah.
A lot of like, why is this happening? Why are they doing this to me? Why is this, you know, sort of anger, that kind of anger, not anger in, I wish this person didn't exist, not that sort of thing, but, you know, why are they doing this to me? Kind of anger. And then, you know, the red mist, basically.
And the red mist comes and
then
the behaviour.
all logical Julia has now left the building.
Yes.
You know, it's
yeah. So I suppose, you know, it is difficult then, isn't it? As you say, I mean, you know, I think for everybody, when we all get anxious and our anxiety is increasing rapidly, if we're suddenly in a fight flight situation, but for people who are not PDA or who don't have that constant anxiety, then you're starting from a lower point. So maybe that you might notice those triggers a little bit more. But as you say, because you're always in a state of anxiety, actually pinpointing those changes of what's going on for your body and how you feel might not be as recognizable for you.
Yeah, and they have to get very obvious because, you know, you're sat there now, you don't feel sick, your hands aren't sweating, and well, I hope not. Otherwise, you know, I'm sorry you're so anxious. But if they suddenly started to feel that, you'd be like, oh, my tummy feels funny. Oh, you know, and why are my hands sweaty? And why is my heart racing? And you'll be like, oh, I'm anxiety. Whereas if you're already there, it's got to get really bad. So for me, my biggest marker that distress behaviours are coming is proper chest pain.
Right.
Because I don't ordinarily get that. So at the minute, I have no chest pain. I and a sore throat. I developed flu-like symptoms when very anxious. So I quite often will message friends and say, I think I've got a cold coming. And they're like, you probably haven't. And I haven't. But I will develop a runny nose and a sore throat, and it's gone the next morning.
Right.
But it's just when I'm... So if I feel that, or I feel any chest pain, then I'm like, I need to reduce demands. So they're what I use, but obviously that's not, you know, not an ideal starting point because I can't go on nausea and I can't go on, you know, fidgety because I don't think I've ever sat still in my life. So
yeah, that's it, isn't it? As you say, when you've got that baseline anxiety anyway, then it's more difficult. Okay, yeah, that's really insightful, I think, to be able to share that with people, because that's something I hadn't thought about, that in that you've constantly got that anxiety, so therefore you don't notice when it's escalating as much. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, Julia. Okay, so moving on to the next question then. Can you suggest some support strategies to help prevent a PDA person from reaching the point of distress behaviour? So how could people around the PDA support a PDA to stop them getting to that point of distress behaviour?
So first thing to do would be to identify what the PDA's particular triggers are. So for me, it's anything unexpected or unpleasant that suddenly pops up. And sensory for me takes a massive role in what I can cope with and what I can't. So for me, I'd need a lot of sensory things put in place. So I need, if it was a classroom, I'd need it to be kept cool, so the blinds down, windows open, or fans on, and no overhead lighting, as quiet as possible. No chairs that, it just makes me cringe now, but chairs that squeak on the floor.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Just because obviously when the bell goes, it's like 30 chairs all doing it at once.
Yeah.
But you can get little feet things that go on the end of the foot things that are already there, but they don't work. That mean that they've got like felt on them. So the chair doesn't slide out, so it's safe. But there's not that noise, because it's normally a rubber foot, isn't it? Which is just,
Yeah.
just begging all teachers listening to this, please put felt on the bottom of the chairs, please. So getting the sensory thing right for me is vital. And then, because we're not so good at picking up the physical signs, you need to be.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if your PDAer announces at, say, 2 o'clock every day that they feel sick, why? You know, what is that telling you? What's happening at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock that's causing that to come in? Make sure that they have lots of breaks, either brain breaks or movement breaks. Same for the adult PDAs. You're supposed to, when you're on your laptop, aren't you? You're supposed to have 10 minutes every hour or something. Like you do for your eyes, just make sure that you're not doing the same thing for too long.
Yeah.
And learning to have downtime in between things. As tempting as it is to try and get everything done on Monday so that you can have the other 6 days to yourself, it would be lovely. But if you do that, then the 6 days are going to be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually better to space it out, for me anyway.
Yeah.
But it's pacing, really, and just being mindful of what you're asking and what's going to come up next. Is it a good idea to have a written test at school on the same day as sports day?
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not. And even, do they even need to join in on sports day? One of the children that I know and hang out with, she's neurodiverse herself, and absolutely loathes and detests anything sporty,
Yeah.
and will not join in. So she's having her first sports day at secondary school, and she asked the teacher, "Is there anything else I can do other than do it?"
Yeah.
And the teacher said, "Yes, we need somebody to run the tuck shop." So she's like, "Right, I'm doing that. I'm doing it." So she's delighted, because she no longer is forced to join in something that gives her no pleasure. So, there are ways round joining in. So she's still part of sports day and may actually now enjoy it.
Yeah, but she's got that reasonable adjustment, hasn't she?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's without a diagnosis. So that's
great.
That's just a teacher listening to a pupil and saying, actually, and I mean, it may or may not be true that they needed help. Tuck shops are normally run by adults, aren't they? So it may have been a job created, but it worked.
But it works, exactly. But they still feel part of sports day. And and it sounds like, from what you're saying, then it's that for people to support you, it's that they need to know the individual very well, don't they? They need to know what works for you versus what might work for someone else. Like that, your friend doesn't like sport, where someone else might like sport, and actually it's the taking part in the certain events that they might like is what will help to keep their anxiety lower, because they enjoy that particularly.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that support then is as we say, it's that knowing the PDA very well, and as you said earlier, knowing what sensory sensitivities they have, knowing what they like, what they dislike, and that's how we can put support strategies in place to try to prevent
Yeah,
the anxiety getting to the distress behaviours. So
yeah.
then when a distress behaviour does happen for you, what sort of things help from the people around you? So for example, what does Paul do, or what does anybody else want your friends do? What do you need them do for you when you're in a distress behaviour?
So when I'm building up to it, when I'm getting to, so for me, the first thing that starts happening quite early on is I'll start forgetting words for things
Mm.
and getting cross when I'm trying to say a sentence and it just comes out as sort of noise. Then I will start sort of well, almost like then losing my train of thought, except I was thinking, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I start sort of, as my mum would call it, fiddling with myself. So I'll start, playing with earrings or
Mm.
biting, the skin around my fingers, that kind of thing. Um, so at those points, I can be distracted.
Right.
Um, and it's going to sound a bit weird, but sometimes either I'll do it or Paul will, but he'll distract me with something that will make me more cross.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Um, but something that I can deal with now. So if I'm anxious about something that we can't change and can't fix,
Mm-hmm.
then he will remind me about that email from the council,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
so that I've then got somewhere to channel all that anxiety. So I press reply, and I'm right.
Right.
And
Okay. Yeah. So it's almost like a distraction then.
it is a distraction, but it's getting the anger out as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I will then send that email to the council, and it will probably be the best email I've ever written. Um,
Yeah.
so that can be good, or he'll distract me with food.
Mm-hmm.
He might suddenly sort of bring in the biscuits and say, "Oh, you know," um,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Or I can distract myself with television, um, or watching cat videos on Facebook. Not that
Yeah.
I spend hours doing that every day. Um, that kind of thing. And then when you get to the sort of when I begin to start shouting and swearing, the worst things you can do is say things like, calm down, or it's not that bad, or you just need to take a minute. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
not helpful.
That's
Um, never be dismissive. Um,
no.
and and also I know we try to say things like, I hear you, but
Mm.
if you say that wrong, that's really patronising.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to be good at saying that. Um, Paul's not very good at saying that phrase, so he will just say "I love you,"
Okay.
which says the
Yeah.
same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's that I'm existing. I know you're there. I
Mm.
know you're not okay. Um, then when I get to my F off point, as I call it, which is where I'm fight or flight. So
Right.
um, I usually use the word or words F off, because at that point I've lost the ability now to actually put a sentence together
Mm.
and think rationally. So there's no rational left.
Okay.
So as I always say, to parents who say, "Well, I don't like it when my child swears at me," I'm like, "Well, yes, it's not nice, um, but they are conveying something very
Yeah.
important, which is please leave me alone."
Yeah. It's communication, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. And if I had in that moment the ability to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Rachel, but I'm finding your behaviour triggering.
Mm.
I'm not enjoying this appointment. Can I please go home?" If I could say that, I would.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in that moment, I can't. So F off is just easier, and it
Mm.
conveys everything. So at that point, I will either leave, um, or you'll need to. So it depends. If I move, let me go, and if I don't, you leave. So Paul will do that. He'll go upstairs and work up there,
Mm.
or I'll go and sit in the car if we're out and about.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really important, like if Paul, because Paul will, because he's so polite, he'll, if we're in an appointment, he'll actually stay behind and apologise. I know he's doing that,
Yeah.
which is fine. That's just how he is.
Yeah.
He just has to. So at some point, he'll come out to the car, maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, to that we'll go home. but he won't say anything. If he's in agreement with me, he might say something like, well, they were rubbish.
Mm.
And that's a sort of an attempt then to sort of, make me laugh.
Yeah.
So, but that's basically so I'll either open the floodgates with a load of swearing and shouting and screaming about how rubbish they were, or I'll start crying, or I just won't respond. And he just goes with that. So obviously, if I start laughing and saying how rubbish they were, he'll join in. And it's about learning what the responses are given,
Yes.
what they need to get back. So obviously, if I was to start crying, Paul would know not to start making jokes about how rubbish they were.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I need. And sometimes we just drive home in silence. And it's just knowing your PDA well enough that you know that when they say F off, they mean it. And if we're at home and I say that, he won't come back down into the front room until I either text him a gift that says I'm sorry.
But as you say, it comes down to that relationship that you've got and how well that you know each other. And actually, he knows when to give you space. You know when you need space. You know when you need him to say certain things, as does he. And also, as you've mentioned at the beginning of that, was about you've got certain strategies that you use, whether it be the fidgeting with something or whatever it might be, though, when you think, oh, okay, yeah, I need to try to bring my anxiety down, which is great. I mean, it really sounds like that between the two of you then that you can manage. Yes, those distress behaviours still might happen, but actually you naturally can work your way through it between yourself and Paul, which is great. It's brilliant.
And unfortunately one that you can only really use with adults, because you'll know why when I say it, which is another one. I sometimes just disappear. So not good if you're dealing with a child, because you're like, where are they?
Yes.
So obviously not for the parents out there, but for the adult PDAs. I did this once. I don't know why I decided that it would be a really good idea to go to Morrison's 2 days before Christmas in the afternoon to do some shopping. Never again.
No.
And I'd managed to make it to the till, and then I thought, no, I'm going to punch the next person I see. So I didn't say anything to Paul. I just left. And I've got a car key in my bag, so I don't even need to ask him for the key. So he just arrived 20 minutes later with a trolley load of shopping. But what he didn't do was text me and go, where are you?
Where are you? Yeah, exactly.
Because, obviously that you can't do that with a child, because, you can't say to your child,
you can't just let them walk out.
You can't say to your child, now listen, it's absolutely fine with mummy if you feel overwhelmed to just leave and go to a safe place. It's like, no, we can't do that. Unfortunately, I wish we could. But it is a very good approach for adults. And because if I think at that point, if he texted me and said, are you okay? Where are you? I would have got very cross at him for being so stupid and not knowing. Because I honestly felt like the entire town was in Morrison's at that moment. It was just, it was like, you see the photos of Eastbourne Beach in the summer. It was like that. It was just horrible.
I know what you mean. It's just manic, isn't it? But as you say, it's that strategy that works for you. And well, I think we're coming to the end of this podcast now, Julia. But I mean, I want to thank you so much, because you've shared so much really, really insightful information. I'm sure lots of people would have been able to get so much from today. So thank you very much. And if you want to hear more, we have a deeper dive podcast, which are available via subscription. If you'd like to find out more about those, then please do visit the PDA Society website. I want to thank Julia again for sharing her valuable experiences of distress behaviours, and a really sort of unique insight, which has been so valuable for me, and I'm sure for all of our listeners as well. So if you want to hear more from today's special guest, then there's a deeper dive version of this podcast, available on our training hub. And we'll put the link to this in the show notes. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us on the PDA Society's podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share. For more support, resources and information, visit the PDA Society's website at www.pdasociety.org.uk. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
So, if you want to hear more from today's special guest, then there is a longer version of this podcast available over on our training hub. Sponsors of our training hub make it possible for us to create and put out this podcast for everyone for free. As a thank you, they get free access to all recordings and self-guided training on our training hub. Thank you, subscribers, for your generosity. If you'd like to become a subscriber, there's a link in our show notes.